Okay, thank you. This is the February meeting of the Wyoming Board of Education. We have already begun our meeting because we went into executive session to consider the employment of a public employee. We are now out, ready for recognition of the public, of which there is none. All right. So now we will go to a presentation. Rhonda's going to talk about the 5-year forecast on kind of a different schedule. So
I'm doing today. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Jeannie. Well, we are going to speak a little bit about the financial forecast tonight. We've called it the 5-year forecast. We've called it the 3-year forecast. We've called it the 4-year forecast. I think we just landed on financial forecast would be the best title. This is the new February edition. So there was a recent law changed. The biennium budget process last year also made many policy changes, one of which changed the timing of the financial forecast. We used to be on a October, November fall edition, and then there was a May edition, and that lined up nicely with the closing of our school year and our income tax payments. We get our final income tax payment in April. And so the new February edition has some challenges for us as we think about really just kind of being in the middle of our school year still. And we have a number of postings still up. So hiring is we're very early in the hiring season. We haven't even started kindergarten enrollment yet. So we have a lot of things that are normally wrapped up by the time that we see the May adoption of the forecast are really in the preliminary stages. So we don't have a ton of changes in this version, and we will likely see another version in May or even in June to wrap up the school year, just to get things to more accurately reflect how we landed at the end of fiscal year 26. And then before we roll up into next fiscal year. Just a reminder that this is a general fund only. This is an operating forecast. So we have a number of other funds that are not included. So none of our building funds, our primary facilities, or any student activities, or the permanent improvement funds, none of those are part of this forecast. It is an operating forecast only. We do model based on historic trends and current law. Current law is really important, as we are going to talk about and highlight some areas of risk when we think about where there could be potential law changes. So this is a cash basis document. We start with beginning cash, and we are in fiscal year 26, the 25-26 school year. And so we start with beginning cash. We forecast revenues, forecasted expenditures, and then we also have either a surplus or a deficit, and then ending cash. So pretty straightforward in summary. And so you will note that we are forecasting to deficit spend, which means that expenditures are higher than revenue. Our revenue growth is forecasted to be about 1.74%, but we're forecasting expenditure growth of 2.67%, which means we are eating into our cash balance. And when we talked a lot about cash balance during the biennium budget debates, and we here in Wyoming for many years have had a cash balance policy, and our cash balance policy tells us that $5 million is our minimum threshold that we need in order to meet our cash flow needs. And so we are creeping towards that $5 million. And as we get closer and closer, that is what triggers us to start to either do one of really three things: raise revenue, reduce expenditures, or probably some combination of both. So just again, some very slight changes in this February version compared to the version that we adopted in the fall. So when we think about revenue, we are just shy of 75% locally funded. And the local funds come from real estate taxes, property taxes paid by 97% of those paid by our residents, 3% of those paid by our businesses here in the community, about 2.3% public utilities, and then 34% from income tax. On the state side, about 18%. That number has been flatlined since 2019. And then all other revenue, that really small the sliver of the pie, that is investment revenue, fees, those sorts of things. And when we talk about areas of risk and just making sure that we know where those areas are, property tax is certainly one of those areas. There were a number of changes in property tax policy during the most recent biennium budget. None of those impact us in an extremely material kind of way, not like some of our neighbors. We weren't at the 20 mil floor. That's a big deal. The county commissioners haven't approved that piggyback. We have very small inside millage. So we were a little insulated from the material property tax reform, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to impact us. Our greatest area of risk is in cycles of reappraisal. We did earn some additional revenue when values went up on our inside millage, but now that, I'm just going to get super technical here. Now that revenue is going to be capped by the GDP deflator. So that external analysis and a cycle of reappraisal, we will actually see our inside millage potentially reduced, which is a phenomenon that is brand new to the property tax collection. So we're a few years out from that. Actually, the state of Ohio pushed Hamilton County a year out in the reappraisal cycle. So that will have a really small impact as well. Just a reminder that we've had 2 operating levies in the past 21 years. The district passed an 8 mil levy in 2005 and another 8 mil levy in 2017. So property tax reform is one area where a little bit at risk, and we continue to see enhanced property tax reform that might impact our collection. The other one is just property taxes in general. There is consideration across the state. There's an anti-property tax group who's gathering signatures to abolish property taxes at the state level. Again, just a reminder, this is almost 40% of our general fund operating budget. I mean, those numbers are not small. We would have to find a replacement for, by the end of this forecast, almost, $11.8 million in revenue. And so when you think about doing that statewide, the alternatives are a statewide property tax or a statewide income tax that would then be collected at the state level. And we know here in Wyoming City Schools that when things get put into the state funding school shaker, we are not winners ever in that formula. So what we have always loved about property taxes is this element of local control. All of these were approved by Wyoming voters, not sent to the state and, plopped in some formula and then maybe sent to us, maybe sent to vouchers, maybe, who knows. Local property taxes voted here in Wyoming come to us and then part of our operating budget to meet the needs of our students. So that is an area of risk and one that we are very carefully watching how that effort from the anti-property tax folks continue their work. That deadline is July 1st. And so we'll be monitoring that and be thinking about, depending whether or not they hit their targets for July 1st, which would then put that on a November statewide ballot. We will be monitoring. If that happens, we will be in full gear advocacy. We've already started a little bit of that advocacy. If you follow along on Finance Friday, this was the topic of Finance Friday, not this past week, but the Friday before, and it got quite a bit of attention. Certainly some energy around it on both sides. So I think on the surface, if somebody just walked up and said to you, hey, how about we just get rid of property taxes? You're like, well, that sounds amazing. Until you start to understand really what that means in terms of servicing your local school communities and your other local governments. So just continue that advocacy and help folks understand what that looks like. So 37% of our operating budgets, no real change in this number over the life of this forecast, but is an area of risk in future legislative consideration, and then also monitoring this advocacy, the anti-tax group. And then our next most material revenue source is income tax, and this really since about 2020, coming out of COVID, we've really seen some strong collection here. And this is one of those areas, again, of risk that if this takes a turn, this would impact our cash balance sooner rather than later. And so, again, we've seen some pretty healthy collection. We've been able to absorb those small dips because we do have cash balance. But we've seen historically, in recent history, we've seen some pretty strong collection, and we're continuing to monitor that. We do have, 25 years of data that tells us that this strong collection does not continue year after year after year after year. And so we continue to have a very conservative 3% in the forecast. But it's something that every time we get one of those quarterly payments, we look at that at finance committee and we would, bring that back to the board if we think that we need to make a change to those assumptions. And then state funding, there are a lot of colors on this page. It's about 18% of our general fund revenue. And again, we've been flatlined at about $5.9 million since 2019. And as you can see the shape of this curve forecasting out. I'm not forecasting any increase in state funding. And in fact, if you just look at those little blue bars each year, you see how those blue bars are growing? That's the portion of the guarantee. So Wyoming, again, we kind of go back to the state funding shaker. They put in all of the inputs into the school funding formula and they shake it out and they say, okay, how much of this is going to Wyoming? Well, we would get only the orange part. Only the orange part of that graph, but we are on the guarantee. So there's this guarantee provision that says that we don't get any less than we got in 2019. Mm-hmm. And so that's that blue section of the bar. And so there was, in the last biennium budget, there was significant conversation about phasing down and eliminating the guarantee. And that was a major part of our advocacy during the biennium budget debate. And so I don't doubt that we'll continue to be in those conversations. Yes, Celia.
Do I understand that means in 27, we would not have what's in the blue? So we would not have almost 3 million of that 6 million?
Yeah, so the red box is the current year biennium. So we're all set for current year and next year. But look at the purple box. Mm-hmm. The purple box is the next biennium. So that's what we'll be fighting for in the next biennium budget debate. And so the blue is the guarantee. And again, we've been on the guarantee since 2019. Yep. Yep. And so I don't see any measure that results in Wyoming City Schools receiving more state funding. Mm-hmm. Our job is to hold on to our guaranteed amount. Mm-hmm. And so again, this is a more material area of risk for us because we saw significant energy around this during the last biennium budget. One, about just the level of state funding towards public education in general, and then also how those dollars are distributed. And for a district like Wyoming, or for anybody on the guarantee, quite a bit of advocacy on our end to be able to keep those funds as they continue to make modifications in the school funding formula that by no doing of our own just end up with a calculation that sends us less revenue.
Sure.
So that's what we're trying to protect.
Hey, Scott, I know you're on the Zoom, so if you have a question or something, either just wave or come off mute and say something. Sometimes I'm on the other side of the camera, so I just want to make sure you know you got something.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so moving on to expenditures, now that we've learned where the money comes from, where does it go? Well, we spend about 80% on salaries and benefits. We have about 230 staff members that serve our 1,800 students, teachers, classified staff, administration, and that is right at the benchmark of public education statewide, because that's what public education does. We hire staff members to serve our students. And so then the next biggest bucket of expenditures are purchase services. And so if we are not hiring our own staff to perform some of these services, then we're purchasing those services from others. And also included in that bucket are things like fixed cost on your home, like utilities shows up in purchase services, insurance shows up in purchase services, legal costs, things that are just a regular part of a fixed cost of running the district. And then, so purchase services is where we would have our outsourced transportation, our outsourced technology support, our outsourced, we send students outsourced for preschool services. So there's some student services in there, there's some staffing services, and then again, the fixed costs that come with running the school district. And then the yellow is what's left, about 7.5%, and that includes I like to call that kind of the stuff. That's what our staff members use to, in terms of materials and supplies, textbooks, technology, things that you see in student classrooms that the teachers and students are working with as part of their learning. And so I am forecasting a little bit higher growth than historical in this line item. Again, because as I'm sitting here today, I'm more uncertain in February than I am when I do this work in May. Again, we have, I don't want to put Erica on the spot, but I think maybe 7 or 8 postings out there, all of which we are in the early phases of hiring. And you know, we talked about it a little bit about this at the board meeting, at the board planning meeting. You know, our work, while it is very cyclical, we are still, you know, assessing and working with students and then revising our plans on how to meet the needs of those students next year. And so that pivots for us. And so there is a little bit more of a conservative estimate in these expenditures, more so than I would normally. I would know more in May, and I would be able to make a more informed estimate. So there's some conservativeness in the growth here.
Is there any chance, I'm sorry, foolish question, but that the treasurers can say to the state legislature, this really isn't helping us by having this crazy February date, we'd like to go back to the May, November?
Yeah, so we did say that.
Okay.
And we are continuing to say that. So we'll see. I mean, it is very difficult to have some sort of reasonable change from the fall version until now, especially for school districts like us that have an income tax. And, you know, I just think about, you know, the clarity that we have in a smaller district on staffing in May. I just think about what that looks like even in a larger district. It's a better tool. Even if the state pulls down the data, it's better data for them if we wait until April or May. So we will continue that advocacy. And so this just kind of speaks to how I'm forecasting the expenditures. And so again, I mentioned last slide that I am forecasting a little bit higher rate. So historically, on the past 5 years, we've had about 4.3% inflation. Our revenue has increased just over 2%, and our expenditures have increased about 3%. So a little bit less than inflation. So when you think about that, so that was historical on the historical side of this forecast. Moving forward, inflation is projected to be at 2.26, revenue forecasted at 1.74% increase. And I'm forecasting just higher than inflation at 2.67, again, because a lot of uncertainty, as I said here in February with some unknowns. So we'll continue to monitor that. And so going back to the cash, it all kind of comes back together in the cash chart here. Thinking about where we are forecasting to end fiscal year 26. Again, deficit spending at just under $700,000, eating into that cash balance a little bit more each year as the expenditures outpace our revenue estimates. But we also know that all of those risk factors that I identified early on the revenue side could impact the numbers and the shape of this cash balance curve. You know, as soon as April, when we get our next. So small changes this time, not as many changes as we normally see in the May version of the forecast. All that being said, if every single number on this chart were accurate, this is pointing towards running an operating levy in 28 to collect in 29. If every single number on this chart was exactly accurate, that's where we're pointing towards. And again, the last levy, 8 mils in 2017. So a pretty solid 10, 11 year run.
Rhonda, the biennium budget then, where does the next one come in on that? Well, on
28 would be the first year of collection.
okay. So if there are changes, obviously that's gonna impact that.
Yeah, so in the middle of this biennial budget cycle, the state will also elect a new governor. And, I think that that could have a material impact on how public schools are funded in Ohio. So that happens inside the red box.
Done.
And then would certainly impact how those numbers look in the next biennial budget in the purple box.
28, January through Marchish would be the budget mess.
27 would be January through March, because we're gonna start it on July 1st to 28th.
Okay, all right. So if you had to run a levy in, what is our primaries in May, the governor election doesn't come till November?
The governor election is going to happen in this
27?
November,
Before, yeah, before.
in 26.
All right.
And so I would imagine, I mean, they're very different platforms
Very
on,
much,
on
yeah.
their beliefs of public education in Ohio. And so we're gonna get a pretty good understanding of what the next biennial budget cycle will look like as soon as we know Ohio's choice for a new governor. And that actually might be the most, other than just abolishing property taxes. That actually might be the biggest area for us, public schools in general. Both from a revenue standpoint and a mandate expense standpoint. I think both of those things are going to look very different depending on who's elected.
Okay.
Any questions?
When you were saying we were gonna be in a spot of deficit spending, it sounds like, why would you do that? That's not really a good thing. It's funny, you talk about 2005, 2017 to 2027, 28 or whatever. It's like, it does give context on how fiscally responsible it's been, you know? Because I think when I remember running in 2017, and there was a discussion that the levy would last for 5 years, or that it would be into the range of say 2022. So we'll be a bit beyond that by the time we get back to having that conversation.
And we know that certainly our income tax has helped us do that. Right. And it could still help us. But the window is shortening as we continue to eat into our cash balance. It would take significant income tax growth to keep us off the ballot in the next 2 years. I mean, like, very unprecedented income tax growth to keep us off the ballot for some reason. And even that we have had very healthy collection even this year, but there is no piece of our 25-year data that tells us that is repeated. I mean, we can hope that it does, but hope isn't really the best plan.
I get to see that in the line item.
Yeah, hope, we hope.
Good guesses, yeah. Well, we'll see.
Questions?
We'll have to see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Giving credit
Very
to Madeira, they deserve it. When they ran their last levy, they, to try to explain deficit funding, they talked about it as if you're driving a car. The car's the school and you're driving along, and when you have a full tank, you're fine. You can go up to Dayton to see your mother, you can, you can drive around, you're okay. When you get a half tank, then you're still kind of doing okay. There's nothing wrong with the car, as in there's nothing wrong with the school district.
Yeah.
But then you get down to that quarter tank, the cash balance kind of place where you go, I need to fill up again. No real problem with the car, no real problem with the driver, just that's the way it goes.
You have a car that tells you you're at 12 miles left, and you just kind of fill up right
Well,
there.
your car's
That's one approach.
his cars don't tell him anything. So we all have to worry about him driving up to northern Ohio without proper gas. All right, thank you. Committee reports, we'll go on to those. The belonging and inclusion, no report, but Citizens Advisory did meet on February 10th. You want to chat about that?
Yeah, we, this was our final meeting before we begin, each of the group's presentations. And so, The next time we meet in March, the Young Alumni Group will be presenting to the CAC at their CAC meeting, and then they'll be coming here for the March regular meeting to present to us. And then in April, the homework and best student study practices based on best practice research. They'll be reporting out to the CAC in April and then coming to our April regular meeting. So excited we'll see what they have to say. Cool. Yeah.
District leadership team, we met February 19th, just last week.
We did, and really calendars were the big topic for the DLT, and really taking a close look at calendars, especially as they relate to the construction process. And so in the 27-28 calendar, which we're working with a draft right now, what we're focusing on is the fact that Hilltop and Elm will be finished that summer. Hilltop earlier on in the summer, Elm will be later on in the summer. And so we have to be mindful of when students will be able to move into Elm. And so we're looking at trying to be creative with the start of that calendar to try and stay in the typical routine that we have within the district when we set the calendar up. And we might have some unique options for Elm in particular. And so we're continuing to work on that. I'm hoping to bring a first read to the board potentially in March. My next step is going to be to meet with primary school staff. We'll be there on Wednesday, meeting with them. And then we'll meet with PAC teams throughout the March timeframe. And again, hopefully be able to bring the calendar to you later in March.
All right, great. Facilities, you don't meet too often, right?
What are we on? Core team?
36.
Is it 36?
36.
36.
All right. What's happening?
So lots, but please jump in. We did have a core team meeting, and again, our core team meetings are focused specifically on primary facilities construction. And so a few of the topics that were covered during that included the environmental graphics plan. We've been talking about Elm. Environmental graphics are the graphics that are found within the building. And so I'm trying to continue that planning. Again, we're trying to make sure all of our buildings are connected through a common vision, but unique to the building, individual buildings themselves. We talked about the retaining wall that is between Hilltop and the water reservoir. And we are continuing to work with the city on the plan for that specific structure. And we also took a look at the Vermont site plan and also looked at the exterior design of Vermont, all in preparation for another design workshop. Vermont second design workshop is coming up March. I've got it here, coming up March 9th. So excited about that. Still connecting with primary facilities, City Council had its third reading of the Hilltop Development Plan. That was on February 17th, and that is passed, you could say, was voted, it was approved, which is really exciting. That means we can make the turn and now begin physical construction at Hilltop. And we're just right around the corner for that. So very excited about that. And as I said, the Vermont Design Workshop is coming up on March 9th. We are going to have a walkthrough, a tour, if anyone's interested, at 6 p.m. So we'll say that starts at 6 p.m. and that's with anyone who wants to take a tour of Vermont. And that's going to be followed at 6:30 with the design workshop. And again, that's the second one. So community members will be able to see how the feedback from that first workshop has been used to modify and change plans. Excited about that conversation. And on top of that, I'll call it the regular facilities committee also met. And what we're trying to do is just think about facilities outside of the primary buildings. And so the group met this past month, and we spoke about the permanent improvement funding plan. Prior committee work over the past several years that committee's been focused on, HVAC work, a third phase at the high school, roof replacement plan at the high school that's being planned for this summer, and starting to think about athletic facilities. So lots of things happening in the facilities plan. We're
Yes.
athletic facilities in general, or?
Yeah, there's something.
Yeah, just thinking about where are we with our athletic facilities all together and how do we make sure that the athletic facilities are part of the greater discussion on facilities in general and making sure that they're part of the district conversation.
Okay. Mhm. And when you talk about facilities, we did have a city school meeting. We meet 3 times a year. And that lately has been the number one agenda item has been our building and their roads. And how the
Right.
two will sometimes hit up against each other.
All funded with property taxes.
And
mentioned.
property taxes. They would
Let's
be,
plug in for the property taxes.
they would be terribly affected as well, so. All right, finance, you met tonight?
We did, I'll do it if that's okay.
Please.
Okay, we did a few annual or routine items, monthly items. We looked at the salary and benefit analytic with no material notes or changes. We looked at the primary facilities cash reports. There's a lot going on from a facility perspective in the facilities of the core. And so we just take a peek at the financing side of it, just to make sure we keeping everything on track. We did highlight the lease agreement with the Presbyterian Church of Wyoming, and just so appreciative and thankful of our partnerships with both Friendship and the Friendship Methodist and Presbyterian Church of Wyoming. When we ran the bond issue, we had a placeholder for the swing space of $6.5 million. And through our lease agreements with both Friendship and the Presbyterian Church, we are saving about $4.5 million that we've been able to repurpose into square footage and instructional spaces at all 3 primary schools. So just a remarkable opportunity. And so just very, very, very appreciative of both of those for the. Wow, it is right. So it's wonderful.
Thank you,
It is-
community.
It is wonderful. We hit the highlights of the forecast that we just talked about here in the meeting.
And one thing,
Oh, please.
I thought this was important, the rent being paid to the Presbyterian Church is going to be approximately the same as the rent being paid to Friendship. Which is good
Yeah.
because we're not out of balance on either one of those, and we've got
Thank you.
good partnerships with both.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Like the Presbyterians as much as they do the Methodists. Maybe like the Presbyterians as much as they do the Methodists.
Yes.
We looked at Tim mentioned that the regular facilities committee was looking at the high school phase 3 HVAC and the roof project at the high school. We just reviewed the financials of those quickly on the finance team. And then we have been taking a deep dive into the district profile report or the CUP report that was released a few months ago. Our last meeting, we talked about expenditure per pupil. And this month we did sections A and B, which were demographics and help me, Nathan.
You looking for this one?
Yeah, I'm looking for this.
Oh.
Demographics and, thank
Yes.
you, demographics and the personnel data. So, we're looking at our own Wyoming's data, statewide data, districts like us, and then we were benchmarking against 3 school districts that are, we're often compared to: Madeira, Marymount, and Indian Hill. So, taking a deep dive into the categories of the CUP report, and that's been an informative conversation.
Due to that state law change, are they also seeing retirements larger than the usual number?
Well, I think so, because, Jen made a wonderful observation that, in the personnel section, that Indian Hill, for one of the first times that we can remember, has a percent of teachers with 0 to 4 years of experience at 23%. And so that feels high.
That is very
Yeah,
high.
ours is 9.
Oh, that's very.
So yeah, I think it does seem like others are seeing it as.
The other thing I noticed, the free and reduced lunch seemed to have balanced out from
previous years. The last
from
couple.
previous years.
Mhm.
I wondered, I mean, there's no answer there.
We actually looked at a historical perspective on that, and we looked back to 2010. And that number from 2010 to, I would say, around 2021, we were hovering around 6 or 7%. And so this is important for folks to know that we went upwards of 12% in fiscal year 24 and, or about 10.5 now. And so we are seeing a shift in that number. Again, it was between 6 and 7% for 10 years. And we have seen it tick up, and it seems to be sort of hovering around the new uptick. And so that's measured by, you know, a number of different ways where students and families qualify, but it's a consistent measure.
Right.
And so,
But we've seen the others come up a little bit.
Well, that was the thing too, you compare to the Indian Hill and the Madeiras and the others, it's, our 10% is not out of, you know, that.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's higher for us.
For us, right,
Right.
it's also ticking up in others, but we were asking whether that means, people's income is about where it was and what it costs to pay for your life is more, and so there's more people now asking about ways to solve for that, across all these neighborhoods.
And we just talked about ways that shows up in the day-to-day student experience, and just continue to be mindful of our students and our families and their needs. Yeah.
Talk some other things about just the interesting differences, you know, it's like, Madeira and Miramar are about the same size of, 3 Mile Square, and Indian Hill is much larger space-wise, but the amount of students per pupils per administrator, you know, is a number that is notably different in our district. And so we talked about the intention that we run lean, you know, relative to the number of administrators. As I look at Erica, you know, kind of like, surprised, like, really? But we were highlighted, you know, that being one of those ways that, you know, folks are looking to serve and use the dollars to sort of manage the students, and it's not unnoticed. So
I like the fact that everything that Erica doesn't do, we get to Gina. So.
No, and in seriousness,
There's your middle level right there, 2 people.
in seriousness, we joke about the fact that it's possible to do it with the number that we have is partially because of the team that he is here, their experience, but also their interaction and partnership with each other. And the question about how long and for how many years can you be that lean, you know, and keep the folks healthy and excited to be here and all the other stuff. And if you have turnover in certain spaces, the other, there may be some places where you have to invest and have some additional administrators, which costs some money or whatever. But if we ever got to that point, the history of wise financial management confirms ideally for our district that those choices would not be willy-nilly or sort of, you know, without real understanding about what happens to serve the students. So.
Well said.
Thank you.
Policy Review Committee, I presume you want to just wait till we get to the Board of Education report?
Yeah.
All right, so now we're at the Board of Education report.
Yeah, first item here is the membership in the OHSAA, Ohio High School Athletic Association, and this is an annual membership that we approve, and it allows us to participate in all of the OHSAA events, which many are happening right now and people are paying attention to because our students are highly competitive.
And if we weren't to get involved, then our kids could not compete.
That's right.
That's why that's. Okay. First read of the following policies. Who's gonna do it?
Anyone want to start?
Well, I wasn't there. And I hope Lauren missed me too.
Sure. he did.
Do start with that first one, because that's a brand new one, name, image, and likeness, and that gets in the news all the time, and I'd like to know how we're gonna handle
So, the language that's in this policy is the same language that is actually in OHSAA.
it.
I don't know that we actually had to have it as a policy. I think that was part of the conversation, but we chose to
Yes.
include it as a policy so that it's transparent. And people can see, what this is all about. I think, the big piece of what this does is it helps people understand what students can't do when they're part of an NIL kind of a factor. And so in this policy, you see several provisions that are laid out that mention things like, you know, they can't engage in NIL recognition during school hours, or there can be no payment that's connected to performance within the sport that they're they're participating in, but that several factors that kind of guide what students are or not able to do, and that's why this policy is important to have written for us.
Or joining a school just because
Right,
taking the money.
that's right.
The other one I noticed there's some kind of a control over groups. And I presume that's like PACs, but booster organization type of
Right.
thing. How is the school gonna be responsible for that? How do we control that?
I think it's actually trying to work in partnership with OHSAA to identify ways that you can monitor that. I don't know how often this happens.
Well, that's it. I don't know that this is a Wyoming situation.
It's not.
But we know it exists.
It's not, right.
All right. Am I doing this?
I will,
I can do it. 3440, 4440,
Yeah, there are a number of those.
6423, and 6460 are all the same thing.
Yes, those are for different classifications of employees with the same policy. And this is a change and a longstanding auditor of state interpretation that you can't, you couldn't earn frequent flyer miles or hotel miles or Kroger points or anything like that if you were making an expense on behalf of the school district. And so quite frankly, that was a nightmare for my office to manage, to chase people down and tell them not to get their fuel points and their Hilton rewards if they were going to a conference. And so this is a gift from the auditor of state that this goes
Okay.
away. I mean, nobody is gonna travel for the rest of their life around the world on the miles that they're getting from a conference. So I think the auditor of state finally realized that and removed this, quite frankly, a ridiculous burden for government. So it's a welcome change.
Okay, all right.
The next one's Jeannie, the ones about transportation. There
Oh,
were some
yes.
recent law changes in relation to van drivers. And we're a small district, and so we do have some van drivers. And so we needed to have some policies that lined up with the new requirements of the law. And we reached out to Peterman for their guidance on how they handle these sort of provisions with our bus drivers. And so we were just modeling our policy choices against what Peterman was doing on the bus drivers.
Okay, all right. But that would affect our van driver, our in-house people.
Yeah, and we have two, right, for context, we have two van drivers.
And then you had some other bus things. Or do you
Um,
want to stay going in order? We can keep going in order. We're down to the new kindergarten law.
yeah, so 5112 is connected entrance requirements, and that is connected to the change around kindergarten. So the law changed, and the law now states that kindergarten students must be 5 by the first day of instruction. And this policy was modified to be in alignment with that new law.
Okay. And then the next one after that is procurement and use of the next one, the drug
Okay.
Narcan.
Yeah, so we've talked about this one a few different times in policy conversations. We had one of our meetings, we had a community member speak to the importance of this. And so we are introducing this policy as a first read. I think the important thing about this is to understand that we're focusing in on high school use at this time, just to make sure that
Okay.
we can really monitor how we're implementing this and getting it right, to help protect students, to protect staff. There are some language changes that I think still need to be made here, just to make sure that it's reflected, that its focus is high school right now. And so we'll make sure that we make those changes between the first read and the second read and approve when we're able to do that. But that's the big change with this.
You did, it does.
Yeah, there's
You did
some
make the high
language.
school
We did
changes.
have
Yeah.
our district nurse review it, and we made a couple recommendations, so we might continue to just tweak that. But again, it's only to make sure that it's very clearly focused on the high school.
Okay, all right, class rank.
Yeah, I'll take this. So this policy helps determine a process for selecting the top 5% of students in our high school and the top 10% of students in our high school. And that is all connected to the Governor's Merit Scholarship and Ohio Guaranteed Admission. And a big question about what happens when there's a tie. And so we work very closely with our high school counseling team and our administrators to identify those components that are to be used in the case that there's a tie for those awards.
You have to break the tie? Why can't,
Find out, right?
why
Yep.
can't they both get in?
Because there's only a certain number of those that are awarded to students. So yes, you do have to. And some districts actually, what we learned during the policy meeting, we did not do this. Landed on a coin flip, a coin toss, which you didn't think that made a lot of sense.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
No.
true.
No, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Better than wrestling it out.
Yes.
Academic based.
Academic,
Not athletic.
academic bowl, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I guess I'm not up with how this is working, okay. All right, budget preparation.
So, again, another, gift from the biennium budget was, significant influence of the county budget commission and the tax budget. And so this policy just aligns with, what came out of the biennium budget bill in terms of compliance with your county auditor's requirements for the tax budget. So this just says that we're gonna do what our county auditor and would like us, their process and their forms.
Okay,
Right.
I think you have a bunch of them coming up for you.
I do. Purchasing and bidding, the competitive bidding statutes. There's just one small change in here in terms of words, but it's a significant change in terms of competitive bidding. When a board looks to build, repair, enlarge, improve, or demolish, the law used to be a school building. So if you were gonna build an athletic facility or transportation garage or a board office, you didn't have to follow the statute. Now it is any building or other property. So they basically said anything that you're doing is now part of the competitive bidding statute. So we're in compliance. That just makes us compliant with the law.
There was some discussion that some schools reclassified older school buildings as warehouses, and then they got to do whatever they wanted with them without competitive building.
Because remember, there was also
That's why.
this role of, that's exactly why. Because if you had to give it, if you were going to close a school building,
Yeah.
you had to give it to a high performing charter school.
Charter.
You had to give them the first right of refusal. And so,
You had to give it.
so if it was a school, you would empty it and say it's not a school anymore, it's a storage facility. And now I can do with it whatever I want. Well, you can't do that anymore.
Okay.
You have to offer your storage facility to a highly, high performing charter school in the area.
At no price, I mean, at low to nothing expense
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
giving up your good building. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
And so the next one is 6325 procurement and federal grants. And so there was a change in the federal threshold for, there was several places, there's a $250,000 threshold that was raised to 350,000. So we made those changes. This doesn't have any impact on us and our day-to-day work because we don't get this much federal money. So we don't have any federal program that is over $300,000. So this doesn't impact us in any way, shape or form. But if the federal government starts raining money on Wyoming, then we'll be in compliance with the law. 6423 is about the use of credit cards. And again, this lines up with the new allowance that if we're using procurement cards or district credit cards, then we're not having to be the mileage Kroger Point police anymore. So 63, I think both of those are the same. They're just one's credit card and one's the procurement card.
Yeah.
So same sorts of things, same changes in theory there. 6425 is also a good one. So if I'm a teacher and I'm leaving school right now and I'm thinking, oh, I have this lab to do tomorrow. I have to go buy some supplies and I'm going to stop by Target on the way home or Kroger's and I'm going to get those. And then I'm going to get reimbursed by the district tomorrow. Well, that's fine, except for that we would never allowed to reimburse you for sales tax. And so now I'm not only am I chasing the points and the mileage, but I'm chasing down the 45 cents to get back from the person. And so this now says that we're deeming that cost of doing business, it's immaterial, and it's fine. So it's going to save everybody. 64, 60, again, there were this whole, mileage point thing shows up in a couple different policies, and so it shows up again in 64, 60, same concept. And then 64, 65, is new. 64, 65 says, hey, we've said that we're not gonna chase you down on the points or the mileage, but you can't make a choice to, I, as the treasurer can't say, hey, I'm gonna make the reservations for the entire board on my own personal credit card, because I get the Hilton points or the miles. So there are still some restrictions.
Yeah.
So, 64, 65 lines up, and these are very common sense, they're very normal. Over there. Then 8,600, we're back to transportation. And, this again is about the allowance for using, vans. They call them alternative vehicles. But it just spells out the usage and the allowable uses of school vans.
Free transportation ones there.
Okay, sorry, so, again, 8,600, this is another one that talks about the law change. And there was an allowance to reduce the age. If you wanted to be a van driver down to 18, we did not make that selection. And I think that the rest of this is just, language changes to speak to alternative vehicles.
Okay.
So a few little, important choices and then a lot of semantics.
And I will say there are two policies that will be coming soon, but are not part of this list, just to have some continued dialogue on. One of them is grading practices. And actually our department chairs are engaged in a powerful conversation around grading practices and communicating academic progress to families. And this is really wrapped around that same conversation. So we wanted to take some additional time before completing that. So that will be coming in the future. And then artificial intelligence. Again, more dialogue just to focus on the work that we've done over the past 3 years and think about how that informs our practices. And we need a little bit more time to go through what some of the options might be for that AI. That one will be coming up sooner than the grading piece.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, realizing this is just a first read, may I have a motion to approve the Board of Education report? May I have a second? May I have a roll call?
Mrs. Aller,
Yes,
Mr. Blarsky,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
thank you. Treasurer's report.
Thanks, Jeannie. Item A, approval of the minutes from the February 2nd regular meeting and the February 10th planning meeting. Item B, approve the statement of revenues and expenditures for month ending January 31st. Item C, accept with appreciation the list of donations, and that is a healthy list from the foundation and PSA and boosters. Again, very, very, very thankful for our support organizations. Item D, the appropriation adjustments for the month of February. Item E, approval of the financial forecast, and item F, approval of the report, please.
Thank you. Can I go back to donations? What is the high school science department going to do? What's there?
They are, so they're focused in on biology right now and just looking at specifically how to prepare students for a biology assessment that they're going to be taking.
Okay.
Yep.
Great, thank you. And my goodness, thank you to the boosters and the PSA. Those are incredible. All right, may I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Blarsky,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Aller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
Okay, I have 6 personnel items to recommend for approval. Number 1 is for unpaid leave, and you can see the dates for that request. Number 2 is recommendation to approve these athletic supplemental contracts. These are all spring sports. Again, thank you to these individuals who are supporting students to be engaged in great ways outside the classroom. Number 3 is recommendation to approve additional hours for home instruction. The staff member is providing home instruction, and this will increase the number of hours that they're able to support the student. And number 4 is a recommendation to approve additional home instruction for these 2 teachers to provide students with that need. Number 5 is a recommendation to approve middle school ELA teachers to, really, they're working to write, book rationales. These are books that are read as part of the ELA curriculum, and these rationales provide background on the books that students are reading, the instructional value that they have within the educational program. And so each one of those books takes about an hour to complete that. So these, that recommendation is to allow them to do that and be paid for that work. And then number 6 is a recommendation to approve these 2 job descriptions. And the main change within both of these is really the title of the high school, college, and career counseling position. That is the adjusted positioning. And anything in the college counselor and or testing coordinator's role is just how it is communicating with the high school, college, and career counseling position.
Okay. That one position up until now has not been a full-time position. Do you see anything growing there or?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right. The other thing I noticed in the information, they put together an end of the year report on the senior class of that year. That's one of the job requirements. Could that be shared with us at some
The
point?
profile.
That would be awfully interesting,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Hear about.
Yeah.
So, what 12 years did to these children? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the superintendent's report?
I motion to approve.
And I'll second. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Dollar,
Yes,
Mr. Blarsky.
Yes.
thank you. And your update, sir?
Yeah, I just tried to compile a list of all the exciting things that are happening. This is really an interesting point in the year where we're ending the winter season. It didn't feel like that this morning, but we actually are. And so just a lot happening in athletics and the arts and academics. So I'll just share a few of these. I promise you I am missing things, because the number of things that our students are engaged in is absolutely amazing. So winter season competition is happening right now. So winter sports, wrestling, swimming, basketball, bowling, cheer, indoor track, all of those are at the end of their season. And so they either have just finished their competition or they're really going into that right now. So a very exciting time. And we actually have a swimming state send-off tomorrow, Wednesday. So that's exciting for our swimmers who are going to state. In the arts, winter concerts are coming up in the next couple of weeks, the week of March 2nd and March 9th. You'll see high school and middle school concerts coming up. Just this past Saturday, one of my favorite events, the WSMA Winterfest was held, which is a phenomenal showcase of just incredible student talent. The high school musical is coming up this weekend. Your good man Charlie Brown, Friday and Saturday. I think there are 2 shows on Saturday. So if you haven't gotten your ticket, you probably want to do that soon. And then in academics, our students might not be excited about it, but we work very hard to make sure they're prepared. Our juniors are taking the AC test tomorrow. Yep, you know that, we know that. Yes, our families know that very well. We've probably sent the same prepared text to kids. So that happens tomorrow. Just recently, our high school students held their Black History Month assembly, and it was focused on the history and contributions of HBCUs. Just amazing demonstration and connection with the students, the student audience. We were talking about how dialed in our kids were on that content. It was really tremendous. Our high school mock trial just recently had state competition. Our 8th grade students went to the Freedom Center, and primary students, they recently, 2 weeks ago, celebrated their 100th day of school. So we're well beyond the 100th day of school right now. And just a little staff note too, I'd like to bring this to your attention. We just had our most recent Impact Award winner, Katie Gottschall, intervention specialist at primary grades. So it was nice to celebrate her. A lot going on, busy time, good time.
Cool.
Yep.
Good times.
Yep.
Good times. All right, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else?
If I may add one thing in the middle school arts, the school play, the school musical is coming up, and the set looks incredible. I cannot believe the kind of set work they're getting together for a middle school theater production. What an astounding group of designers and artists and dedicated construction pros that got together on that little middle school stage at the Fay Auditorium. So I hope everyone
Great.
can make it to see that show. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you.
We also had the middle school variety show.
Oh my God!
And we had an amazing performance, several amazing performances. It was awesome. And there was a particular board member who had a member of their family performing, and she did an amazing job. So
Very proud of that kid. Yeah.
So terrific. Wonderful. Good. Lots of good things to report.
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, in that case, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second,
a second.
and a roll call.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Blarsky?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.